The Trump administration drafted a truly shocking executive order that would have directed the Secretary of Defense to seize voting machines after the 2020 election. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Seems like almost every day we get new details about the threat to our democracy posed by Trump and his cronies as they plotted to overturn the 2020 election. So naturally, Fox News has been laser focused on the issues that matter most to Americans.
The maker of M&M's is giving the candy a woke makeover.
M&M's characters will be redesigned for a more progressive world.
The parent company of M&M's causing quite the stir after announcing their candy mascots will be getting an quote-unquote inclusive woke makeover.
The green M&M, you will notice, is no longer wearing sexy boots. Now she's wearing sensible sneakers. Why the change? Well, according to M&M's, quote, "We all win when we see more women in leading roles, because leading women do not wear sexy boots. Leading women wear frumpy shoes. The frumpier, the better. That's the rule." The brown M&M has, quote, transitioned from high stilettos to lower block heels. Also less sexy. That's progress. M&M's will not be satisfied until every last cartoon character is deeply unappealing and totally androgynous. Until the moment you wouldn't want to have a drink with any one of them. That's the goal. When you're totally turned off, we've achieved equity. They've won.
This used to be a country where you could get aroused by candy, where you, a hot-blooded youth, could be watching TV with your girlfriend, and the green M&M would come on screen with her full lips and her tantalizing white boots, and you'd have to excuse yourself to take a cold shower or go for a long bike ride, and the next morning, your girlfriend would say, "Are you okay? You seem distant." And you wouldn't have the heart to tell her that you were distant because you no longer felt any attraction to her dull, flesh-colored human face. As you now realized, a truth that is self-evident, pure sexuality comes in a green, button-shaped package with an alluring candy shell. So instead, you'd say, "Everything's fine, sweetie," and you'd drive to work, but you'd stop at the convenience store to buy a paper, you would tell yourself. But once inside, you'd also grab a bag of candy, and you'd walk to the register, praying that bag wouldn't slip out of your sweat-soaked palms. And when you paid, hand-shaking and breath-quick, the cashier would look at you and give you a knowing nod, because as an American man, he understood what you wanted. To a piece of candy. But I'm sorry to say, we don't live in that country anymore. So that's what Fox News was focused on as the rest of us digested the news that Trump and his cronies had crafted a plan to seize voting machines, a plan that was apparently so advanced they'd written up a draft executive order that involved the military.
The January 6th committee now has access to a trove of Donald Trump's White House records. Among them, according to Politico, a draft executive order to seize voting machines and keep him in office.
Do you have proof that there was someone inside the United States military working on this premise of actually seizing voting machines?
Well, we have information that between the Department of Justice, a plan was put forth to potentially seize voting machines in the country and utilize Department of Defense assets to make that happen.
But I'm not going to melt in your hand. I'm going to melt in your mouth.
Do you promise? Whoa, 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 whoa. You guys got to give me a heads up when the clips are about to end. Jesus. Now, where were we? Right. I'm not often shocked by Trump's antics anymore, but I have to say this strikes me as a pretty big deal. It's one thing to have a meeting with a bunch of crazy people like Rudy or the pillow lunatic or that lawyer who looks like she kidnapped 101 Dalmatians, only to find out later they were actually just 3 poodles who'd been spray painted. What is the meaning of this? But it's another thing to get a bunch of high-level government officials involved and draft an actual plan. And sometimes I feel like we're going to be hearing revelations like this one for the rest of our lives. Someday I'll be sitting in a nursing home looking out the window at my favorite tree, and a nurse will come in and say, "Did you hear? Trump was training an army of rats to chew the wires out of voting machines." And according to Politico, whoever wrote this executive order had access to sensitive government information that was not publicly known. The draft order cited 2 classified documents. The fact that the draft author knew about the existence of the documents suggests that they had access to information about sensitive government secrets. Wow, so it could have been a high-level government executive, or a general, or literally anybody at Mar-a-Lago. Trump was pretty loose with the top secret information. I'm sure at least once he interrupted a wedding just to read aloud from the X-Files. You may kiss the bride in just a second, but first I think you're gonna want to hear what went down at Roswell. So whoever wrote this executive order was presumably someone who had access to government secrets, which is pretty crazy. This time, we just happened to get lucky, since Trump is too dumb to get his way and a bunch of people stopped him by threatening to quit. But what happens next time a Republican politician wants to use the military to stay in power? Are we just supposed to hope they get distracted by an M&M commercial? I want the military to seize voting machines and impose martial law. And wait a second, who is that angelic creature? No, wait, never mind, she's wearing flaps. Back to treason. And I would just like to point out, to all the people who thought calling Trump's plan an attempted coup was hysterical, this latest executive order is just more proof that the threat was very real. Sure, the various schemes were easy to dismiss at the time because the people advocating for them were known weirdos, but it turns out Trump was actually listening to them.
One of the president's visitors today, Mike Lindell, the founder of MyPillow, was seen over here at the White House outside the West Wing. The White House official did tell me, Wolf, that it is believed that the president and Lindell met.
A Washington Post photographer got a close-up of the notes that he was carrying with him. And Jake, when you zoom in on them, you can see that he is talking about the election. Things like martial law are mentioned, the words taken immediately to save the Constitution.
The guy from MyPillow is carrying documents and talking to President Trump, presumably about declaring martial law.
And it's easy to laugh it off and say he was never going to listen to the MyPillow guy, but he invited him over for non-pillow reasons, it should be noted. I mean, if I said I'm never going to take advice from Mike Lindell, you don't believe me. But if I also said, and I told him that much at dinner last night, you might think, wait, what? For all we know, they took Lindell's notes and turned them into an executive order, too, in which case it would be the first executive order that used a promo code. Enter the promo code Sweet Dreams, and you won't just save the Constitution, you'll save an additional 30%. This is yet more proof, as we've said many times, that you can be both incredibly dumb and incredibly dangerous at the same time. For example, Trump's cronies also had a plan in place at roughly the same time to forge fake certificates from Trump electors in 7 states Trump lost. And of course, and I guess thank God, they put their dumbest henchmen in charge.
We have breaking news on efforts from the former president's allies to undermine the 2020 election results. Now, according to sources with direct knowledge of the scheme, Trump campaign officials, led by Rudy Giuliani, oversaw efforts to put forward illegitimate electors from 7 states that the former president actually lost.
It was basically Rudy Giuliani and all these other misfits leading the charge of this plot, intricately involved in these efforts in December of 2020 to put forward fake electors from 7 states that Trump lost. That was a major part of this overall plan by Team Trump to overturn the 2020 election results back when Congress counted the electoral votes on January 6th. So the point was to have Vice President Pence accept these fake Trump electors rather than the valid Biden ones. One source said there were several calls between Trump campaign officials and state GOP operatives to round up fake electors on a state-by-state level.
Rudy Giuliani rounding up electors is like an Ocean's 11 where everyone's skill was being bat crazy. This is Nancy from Phoenix. When it comes to being a crazy, she's got us covered. This is Frank from Tempe. When you need crazy, he's your guy. Patricia's from Scottsdale. She's like an expert safecracker, but instead of cracking safes, she's being crazy. Trump and his team tried every path they could possibly think of to overturn the results of the election, and they came very close to pulling it off. These are the kinds of schemes they're cooking up when they're not at home, late at night, fantasizing about M&Ms, while resting their heads on their
pillow.
This has been a closer look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV/AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.